Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so this is being recorded, so I'll send you the link to the YouTube recording later in the afternoon. Okay, so let's share the screen and look at your paper. And I opened up all the paper. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here we
Sir,
go.
was it you who just called me?
Yeah. I want to make sure.
Okay, yeah.
Sometimes people forget, and so okay, so here you see it. Howard's in. You can see that, right? You see, okay, Howard's in. Let's save it again just in case I make some more changes. And we go like this, save. And Howard's in, the author of People's History of the United States, has given stories of victims and showed interesting arguments about events. Okay, I want to make sure so I don't forget, because I did check your paper before we started today. I only see information used and cited, specific information used and cited from 2 chapters. You need to use and cite information from 3, okay? 3 chapters.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you just missed that or okay, but I just want to make sure, because I see, something from page 21, which is what, page 1 or 2, chapter 1 or 2, and 74, and make sure you get a 3rd chapter used and cited there. And of course, okay, and you can use the index. You know what the index is in a book? It's at the back of the book, right? The back of the book where the all of the concepts and words are listed. So all I have is
that index.
Okay,
yes,
so you can look up slavery, you can look up Civil War, you can look up
like vocabulary,
Mexican American War. You can look up all of those concepts in the back and find the page numbers, because it gives the page numbers where those terms are used. You can find information pretty easily that way, because and use the Flynn essay to point to areas to compare. So where Flynn talks about slavery, you can look at where Zinn talks about slavery and use information from the book and give the page number where Zinn makes an interesting statement or useful statement for his perspective on understanding why America abolished slavery and the meaning of the Civil War and so on. So I just want to make sure people know that this is how we do academic work. Like for example, there's an infinite, vast amount of information, scholarly articles and books published every year. And of course, I don't read all those books and I don't read all those articles. So I look for specific information in those articles and books. And so, this is what we do all the time. So that's, so you're doing that as well when you write the paper, this essay. So you write Howard Zinn, okay. Then Daniel Flynn, I think it's with one N. Daniel Flynn, who wrote Howard Zinn's biased article, biased. Well, I think it's called something else. Isn't it called biased? What is it? What is the name of Flynn's? I'm looking. I want to go back to the essay to see what he calls. What's the title?
That was the title.
I think it said. What did he say? It says Howard Zinn's biased history. Howard Zinn's biased history is Howard Zinn's biased history. So if we go here, I'm looking right now, right? So Howard Zinn's biased history, and
I don't know where I got the articles from.
And so let's go back to your paper here, and so I have to go to the screen share again. Go here, and there you see. Oh, no, that's not it. This is it, and I have to get the right one here. So like this. Oh, there. Can you see it? No. Okay, because I've got like a bunch of different files open here because I wanted to not waste time on that. But I said, where is it? Is it this one? Maybe it's this one. Okay. No, maybe can you see it now? Okay, yeah. So
that's mine.
Okay. And so a biased history showed oppositions towards Zinn's historical perspective and his attitude towards the historical events. Their differences give readers a broader perspective of U.S. history, thus they are essential to implement when analyzing U.S. history. What, you think Flynn is not biased? Is Zinn biased and Flynn not biased, or are they both biased?
I personally think that he's biased towards really conservative views.
Who, Flynn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're both biased. So can you do any kind of, can you do historical research without being biased? Can anyone do historical research without being biased?
I would say no, because basically, even though there are facts and records exist, and they are, and I believe that they are used as a source of interpretation.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that, and I think Zinn actually makes that book. I mean, it's been a while since I read Zinn's book, but I think he makes that point at the beginning of his, even before the first chapter, that he says every social scientist or historian, at least, they have a theoretical framework, a theoretical understanding of how, who are the most important critical actors in human society. And for Marxists, it's classes, working class, bourgeoisie, middle class. You know, those are the most important actors, and their motivations that drive them to interact with each other is portrayed by a particular theoretical framework. So Marxists tend to emphasize class and conflict between classes over control over the means of production, whatever those happen to be 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, when imperialism, European conquest of North America began under Christopher Columbus, and today. So so what do you, if so, you know, it's like the lens of glasses, right? The lens you wear shape or reflect or determine or affect how you perceive the world, reality, including how you perceive your memory of what happened in the past, because, you know, the past is only existing up here. And so how we research the past is basically researching how we, as a community or as groups of people or as political actors, understand why we are where we are right now, where we are and who we are, and what we are right at this moment. So we look at history to determine what that is. And I think that's what Zinn is arguing, that basically he's assuming that Flynn's, what do you call Flynn's, if you're going to give a name to Flynn's theoretical framework, if Zinn's theoretical framework is Marxist, what would you say is Flynn's theoretical framework? Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I talked about it a little bit in class. It's a positive American exceptionalism. I mean, that's the term. And I referenced the title of a book that I used to use in this class, but, you know, it hasn't been revised, since it came out in 1997. So it's already 24 years old, but so I don't use it anymore, but it's called American Exceptionalism, a double-edged sword. So for many years, people have been arguing about whether or not America is positively exceptional in relationship to not only the rest of the world, but the rest of Europe, which founded the United States by Europeans coming in and expropriating the land and bringing their cultures and language, and, like English language and Christianity, that America is positively exceptional. And that term, American exceptionalism, was, I think, first, or that concept was first conceived by a Frenchman, and his name was Alexis de Tocqueville. He was a minor royal person who came to the United States early in the 19th century, and during the time of Andrew Jackson, when Jackson was president, the seventh president of the United States. And he wrote a number of books, including what was called Democracy in America, a book called Democracy in America. And he's writing, 50 years after the French Revolution. So you had something like Democracy in France too, where you had some kind of political system in France that had some role for popular participation. So he wrote a book called Democracy in America, and that's still considered to be one of the maybe the most important political science research book in the history of political thought on the United States. And it's still published. I mean, you can order it on coupon or Amazon, and there's many editions of it. It's, even though it was published, in the 19th century. And he makes a lot of important points that are really kind of still relevant today, right? That Americans are driven by consumerism, for example. He noted that back in the 1830s, that people, they are always striving to have the latest new technology, the latest new item, whether it be what was in 1840s, the newest kind of way to, whatever it might be. I mean, I don't know what was it, but he was describing how Americans are still like that. He says how he went to Harvard University, and Harvard University, 160 years ago, was already the center of American intellectual thought. And he said all of the professors at Harvard, they all think the same. They all think they have the same theoretical framework, and that theoretical framework is what Seymour Martin Lipset in his book American Exceptionalism, a Double-Edged Sword from 1997, he called that the American creed. And creed is another word for religion. So it's like an American secular religion. It's something that's very important, they're very emotional about, right? That the Americans tend to view as basically the truth, right? And there were 5 elements to it, right? One was populism, lots of direct participation in political decision-making. So like, for example, we have elections all of the time in the US. I think I might've pointed out that there was an election coming up November 2nd of this year. And there's 3 elections every year that I vote in. A small government, right? Not government avoiding intervention of the government in society. Laissez-faire economics. In other words, they allow economic free market capitalism. What was the other? What were the other? I have to look at the other elements. But the egalitarianism, right? That everybody's considered equal status. Not like in Europe where you have the Yangban and you have the aristocrats, and you have the middle-class business people, and then you have the peasants or the serfs. No, Americans don't like to believe that. And high rate of voluntary behavior, but also very egotistical behavior. So Americans at the same time, they are willing to organize themselves at a local level to do things, but at the same time, they really are focused on individual advancement, and they don't have much overall concern for the general well-being. It's not concern for the public good isn't something that really motivates Americans very much. And I've been thinking about that. And of course, he finds, Seymour Martin Lipset argues that Americans are like that because they were founded by people who rejected the Yangban. They rejected those European states with their kings and queens who claimed the right to rule over the people, so that by making the people worship God in the right way, right? And so the Americans, the founders of the United States, the Puritans, rejected that notion that the king can tell you how to worship God, and the king and his priests, and they wanted to worship God in their own way. And they rejected central state authority because it was associated with this notion that the Church of England, which was still very much like the Catholic Church in Rome, although the King of Britain had made Britain formally independent from the Pope, was still ahead of the church in Britain. So it was still a state church, even though it was not part of the Catholic Church anymore. And so the point is that this is the American creed. And there has been a lot of argument about that these values, this makes America really exceptional, positively exceptional around the whole world. And people like Flynn say the proof of that evidence that America is truly exceptional is that basically it won the Cold War. It won the Cold War, and it won the Cold War against communism. And it won the Cold War against the Soviet Union's totalitarian communist model. And America is so powerful and so influential and so powerful and influential around the world because it must be really, truly, positively exceptional. And it must be positively exceptional, so much so that it's admired. America is admired, right? I mean, why this class? It's an English language with an American professor in an American style organized university. I mean, you could take this university and any American student would recognize it. This is not how they organize universities in Germany or in France. This is an American style university. right? In terms of everything about it, almost. But why isn't this class in Japanese? Why isn't it in Chinese? Why isn't it in Russian? Right. And the point that Flynn really buys into this notion of positive American exceptions, because as he's saying, he thinks America is so influential around the world because it's admired. The world and many people around the world admire America. America is influential not because of its military capability, lots of bombs and everything, or even its money, although those are important, but it's because America is admired. And it admired by many people in Korea, many people in Asia, many people everywhere. And it's admired because it truly is positively exceptional. And that's why America is so influential around the world. It can't just be the exploitation. I mean, when you read Howard Zinn's book, you read about exploitation and racial oppression and segregation and expropriation and imperialistic colonialism and crimes by rich, powerful white men against the poor and weak. It's all what Howard Zinn's about. And is that really giving a fair portrayal of American history to produce this country that won the Cold War, saved you and me from the Russian version of Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, trying to instill a totalitarian model on the whole world, and saved the world from this Russian version of Nazi Germany, and saved the world from the Russian version of Nazi Germany, and then is placed as the most powerful country in the whole world today. Is it truly just because America's got lots of money and lots of guns? No. Right. So but when you read Zinn, you have no conception of that. And he even mentions that in his essay, right? That he criticizes Zinn for not talking about America's tremendous first achievements that we've seen in human civilization, like putting a man on the moon, right? I mean, that just impressed the hell out of everybody. Wow. I mean, I can't believe we did that. I saw the moon a couple nights ago. I still can't believe that we went there. And 5 times we went there. And that was a long time ago. And I mean, and so the and this is I think and this is so this is Zinn's Flynn's theoretical framework, positive American exceptionalism. It's not, I mean, all countries are unique, but America's positively unique. And so I think, you remember when you look at that essay that Flynn is writing, if you go back to that essay and you look at the assignment, you see when it was published. It was published in 2003. 2003. Right. So in other words, this is written just a couple of months because the United States in March 2003 invaded Iraq and removed Saddam Hussein in March of I think that's that's 2003, and this happens 2 years after the September 11, 2001 attacks in the United States, and America is again going to war, and it's going to war to this time to fight what George W. Bush called at this time, the president of the United States, the axis of evil. And the axis of evil consisted of Kim Jong-il's North Korea, because Kim Jong-il was still alive at this time, Saddam Hussein's Iraq, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and whoever else you want to put in there. I think you even put in there like Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe in there, I mean, at the time. It combines reference to the World War II when the United States fought Germany and Japan and Italy for the first part, and they were called the Axis powers, And then in 1983, Ronald Reagan becomes president and mobilizes America the way George W. Bush is mobilizing America in 2003. 20 years earlier, Ronald Reagan is mobilizing America and appeals to the Americans to show the will and determination to resist communism when he describes the Soviet Union as the evil empire, the empire of evil. So Axis, evil empire, axis of evil. And it's a straight appeal to this belief that America won the Cold War, and now America must continue to provide global leadership and to address these later problems after the Cold War, because the United States mission in the world is not finished. Its mission as a beacon for humanity, as a light for the world, as the country that saved the world from communism, from Russian Soviet version of Nazi Germany. Its mission is not done, and it must continue to. It must clean up the wreckage or garbage left over from the Cold War. So, from this perspective of people like Flynn, people like Saddam Hussein and the Islamic Republic of Iran and Kim Jong-il's North Korea, that's garbage left over from the Cold War. And we didn't clean that up. Even though we defeated the Soviet Union, but the Soviet Union was a big tumor, maybe a cancer tumor in the world. And the Americans killed the tumor, but they didn't get all the little parts of the tumor that spread out from that big tumor. And the result was, the continuing radicalization of much of the Muslim population of the world, the proliferation of nuclear weapons in North Korea, and they're probably going to use them or sell that technology somewhere, and Saddam Hussein's plan to use all the weapons he bought during the Cold War to now to dominate the Middle East. And since America is not solving these problems, America, as the most powerful, influential country in the world, is going to be targeted by all of the bad guys. And the bad guys are going to focus, and those are the September 11, 2001 attackers, supposedly. And so since America got lazy after it won the Cold War, it allowed this mistake to happen. And these mistakes are due to the weakness of the Democrats. The Democratic Party, like Bill Clinton from 1992 to 2000 as president, but even before him, of course, Jimmy Carter, who was president before Ronald Reagan. So Howard Zinn really admires Ronald Reagan. I mean, if I let me open up another file here, and I should have had this earlier because I used it in other student classes. So this is to tear down this wall. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I can see it.
Okay, because tear down this wall. This is a speech that President Ronald Reagan gave in 1987 in Berlin when the Berlin Wall was still standing. And you remember, when you read the Flynn essay, he references, he points out that Zinn doesn't talk anything about the most foundational moments. He thinks the most foundational, important moments in American history are these critical moments of violence and war and conflict. But there's no discussion of the ideas or the ideals or the model or the appeals of the American leaders during times of critical national history. And he lists three speeches. One is George Washington, the first president of the United States, the hero who led the American military during the Independence War against Britain. He's the first president, and he decides he's only going to serve 2 terms, and he leaves at the end of his 2nd term after he's elected, and he gives his farewell address, and he gives his advice to the American people and recommendation for how America should take care of itself and grow into. He says, stay away from European affairs. Don't get involved in high European politics. Focus on growing and developing our country. Then he references Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. So Abraham Lincoln was president during the Civil War, and when after the North won the Battle of Gettysburg, he gave a speech about when it was clear why at that point that the North was going to win this war because they won that battle. That he gave a speech explaining why we're fighting this war and what it means. And then he puts in that this speech, Ronald Reagan's speech in 1987 before the Berlin Wall. So Ronald Reagan becomes president in 1980. And after all of the 1970s embarrassments and humiliations confronting America. The United States is defeated in the Vietnam War, or I should say, Richard Nixon gets the Americans out of the Vietnam War and opens up relations with China after a Democrat, Lyndon Johnson, got America in that crisis to begin with by sending American military into Vietnam in the middle of the 1960s. And Richard Nixon was able to extract the United States in a way that didn't look completely humiliating, although it didn't work out as well as people wanted. But he opened up relations with China, and China would eventually become an American ally against the Soviet Union, against Moscow. And so Nixon gets credit for that. Nixon and Kissinger get credit for that. But then Nixon, because he's confronting all of these people, particularly on college campuses, all this opposition, protesters trying to undermine America's will to win to do what is necessary to prevent utter and complete disaster in Vietnam, is led by people like Howard Zinn, Gar Alpovitz, Gabriel Kokol, William Appleman Williams, and these are called the New Left historians. And college students also protesting on the college campuses against the war, against being drafted in the military to fight in this war. And Richard Nixon attacks those people and engages in criminal activity, not just the college student, but against all of his opponents. And so he gets reelected in 1972 by a landslide, by a tremendous majority. And then he's forced to resign in 1974 because otherwise he's going to be put on trial in an impeachment and found guilty and removed. And he knew it, so he quit. He resigned before they could begin the process. And then Jimmy Carter becomes president. And but no, not Jimmy Carter. First, Nixon resigns, and then Gerald Ford, his vice president, becomes president. Vietnam collapses. South Vietnam collapses. The Portuguese Empire in Africa collapses, and Marxist parties come to power in Angola and Mozambique. Marxist parties make advances in Somalia and Ethiopia. There's a communist revolution in Grenada, little island nation off the coast of Venezuela. Fidel Castro is playing a role in all of this in Cuba as Soviet ally in the Caribbean. He's sending support to the Sandinistas, who seized power as communists in Nicaragua, and there's communist movements throughout Central America, and then there's high inflation, economic problems in the United States when the oil prices are skyrocket during the War of the Arabs, pro-Soviet Arab regimes against America's friend Israel in 1973. And then America's ally and client, the Shah of Iran, who was put in power by the CIA in 1953, is overthrown in the Islamic Revolution in 1977, 1978. And then there's another oil shock because of the Iran-Iraq war that begins at this time, and Iran's oil being taken off the market during the revolution. And then Soviet Union invades Afghanistan in December 1979. Meanwhile, the Iranian revolutionaries seize the American embassy personnel as hostage, and Jimmy Carter looks like he's unable to solve any problems. America's seem depressed. There's bad inflation, and he rallies American nationalism, right? And then he comes into power. He rebuilds the military, spends lots of money on the military. Uses American military force. He invades Grenada, overthrows that little communist regime there. He gives guns and weapons to the counter-revolutionaries against the Sandinista regime. Lots of bad things happen. He arms the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, the Islam, including Osama bin Laden, and then he goes, and then Gorbachev comes to power in 1985, and he begins reforms in 1985, and it's pretty clear something important is going on. And so Ronald Reagan goes to the Berlin Wall 2 years later and calls for Gorbachev to tear down the Berlin Wall. And 2 years later, in June 1989, there are democratic elections in Poland, and then by November 1989, all of the communist regimes are gone. The Berlin Wall is gone, and then 2 years after that, the Soviet Union disappears. And for people like Flynn, he gets the credit for it. And he won the Cold War in spite of people like Howard Zinn and these leftists who portray America as founded upon evil and exploitation that weaken America's will. Particularly when people like me and all these college professors make you, the students, choose to read Zinn. Out of all the books that are available on American history, we make you to read Zinn. What's our problem? See, Flynn's anger is not so much at Howard Zinn, it's at people like us that make Flynn's books so popular by requiring teachers teachers requiring their students to read it. And we are the source of weakness, when clearly the world admires America. And America, it has to fight for its freedoms because, there's always evil in the world. It can be the Islamists, and now it's China, People's Republic of China. And America has to show the will, in spite of people like Zinn undermining the will of the people. I mean, who's going to fight for America if you read Zinn's book? If that's the way America is, why would you love this country? Why would you admire the United States? So that's where we have to stop now, because I have another student coming in 1 minute. Do you have anything else? I will.
I actually had a lot of questions. But I think the way you talked to me about Flynn's ideology gave me hints to change my structure of my essay. Because the only thing what I do throughout my essay is just contrasting and comparing what two historians' arguments.
Okay.
And I felt like that is not deep enough.
Well, I mean, I'm just giving you trying to give you another perspective, and you need to find information from one more chapter. So okay, we have to stop there because somebody else is going to be waiting. So if you want to talk, we can always talk again later. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let me. And so I'll send you that paper later. Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.